Welcome everybody, this is Rafael Ferreira, faculty at the advertising program at Mohawk College in Hamilton. I will today talk with John Kokoski. He's our senior director at Klic in Toronto and will tell us on his career since the TBWA Toronto and Publicis, being a freelance in Australia and come back to Canada. This whole adventure on his career since 2015, his class of 2015 at the college, and his description on how the different experiences on his professional and personal path led him to the person and professional he is today. So let's go. John Kokoski, Senior Director at Klic, class of 2015. Welcome to Rav's Cast, Tales from MohawkAd. One more episode. We are here now on I think it's the 16th of February in 2022. And with me here today, it's a class of 15 student, former student, graduated from Mohawk College advertising program, Joe Kokoski. And he's a senior director at Klic, and we'll go through his career path. How are you doing, John?
Good.
All right, so I will start the same way I start most of the episodes, saying we are in the end of February, but this is the time at the college that students go to their internships and everything. How was that process for you? How were you feeling? What you did, and what was the start of that?
Yeah, my situation was actually a bit, I think, unique to a lot of my peers in that I got kind of lucky. So I don't know if you remember Adam McDade, but
of course.
We worked together on the what did Jeff call it? It was the Spirit Crusher or something, that like big 30-year project.
Mm-hmm.
We worked together on that campaign work for Jeff, and I guess going in, I was kind of unsure and nervous. I didn't really have anything lined up coming into the new year, like January, February.
Okay.
And Adam McDade messaged me start of the new year, 2015, and he said, "Hey, I landed a gig at La Roche. They want to bring me on for a 3-month internship or 6 weeks or something. I can't remember." And he's like, initially it was just a copywriter spot, but they want an art director. We work pretty well together on a thing. Do you want to join me? So I was like, okay, sure, yeah,
okay,
let's go. So I kind of, I got roped into to joining him at La Roche. So I didn't kind of lost out on the experience of going out, connecting with people, kind of finding my own deal. But I think I would, to sum it up, say like a little bit unsure, a little bit nervous. I didn't really know what to expect of the industry, so that was kind of on my mind a lot. I don't know. I just really didn't know what to expect. So
do you remember which was the first job that went through your direction? The first job ever on La Roche?
The first one that just went through in general?
Oh no, yeah. When you sit there, like, what was the first ever work that you did in an agency?
So
it could be anything. Yeah. Trust me. Yeah, I know how
it was. It was pretty cool. So they sat us down day one. They gave us a little tour, gave us our laptops, just kind of explained the contracts that we had, and then they were like, "Yeah, so we have this brief for a company called Get Assist, which was like I guess kind of like a Kijiji type app, but specifically for like chores and tasks. So like if you needed a dog walker, you would go on there. If you wanted to be a dog walker, you would go on there. If you wanted to get your yard cleaned or your hedges trimmed or like whatever it might be, basically just I think the initial purpose was
Akijiji for services.
For labor services, pretty much, yeah. And they're like, yeah, so we're launching this brand, and they want us to create a website, create a video, and create a bunch of like out of home billboard ads. And so they were like, can you guys think of something? They gave us kind of like a download on the brand, had to sit down for like 3-4 hours and just think about like kind of whatever we wanted within that area, within, video, website design, or outdoor stuff. And we had this idea for like really over the top visuals for billboards. I can't remember exactly what they were, but I remember one was for dog walking, and it was like the idea was an image of a guy who's just like covered in leashes and like pulling like 100 dogs, and it was a tagline like is like feeling overwhelmed or like need help on dog walking, join Genesis. It was something I can't remember, like 7 years ago, but we took all these ideas to one of the creative directors at the end of the day, and he was like, these are pretty cool, can you start like mocking some of these up?
Oh my god.
Like end of the day, he's like, yeah, start mocking some of these up, which was a little intimidating of an ask for me, because I was like, I don't know where to start. Where do I even?
I can imagine the thrill. It gives that kind of adrenaline running. Like, no, I need to do this.
Yeah. It was like everything was all fun and games, and then he asked me to start making mock-ups, and instantly, it's like the real world hit me. I was like, I have no idea what size do I make these mock-ups in? Do I find a like fake billboard to showcase them on? Do I put them in a deck? Like, what do I do?
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the first thing. I have a very vivid memory of that.
But in the end, it worked out?
It worked out. I think the client ended up canceling the video and the out-of-home ads for budgetary reasons. So we ended up only making the website.
Okay.
But yeah, it
part of the process. Yeah, good.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Good, sir. Of course, now.
Yeah. Yeah. What's funny about that is, so that was our first day, and end of the day. End of the day, Adam and I were leaving, walking downtown Toronto back to Union Station, and it was just like, that was interesting. I could see myself doing that for 40 years. He just like nodded along. Yeah, so that was our first day. I remember it like it was yesterday.
So you spent a few months there as an intern.
Yeah, it was either 6 weeks or 3 months. I can't remember.
And then after that, you went to TBWA. So
yeah,
is the office was still on Spadina at that point, or you changed it already?
It was still the Spadina one.
The end of the Spadina.
Before the merger happened. Yeah.
Okay.
My office actually looked out onto the water.
On the water. Okay.
I worked with Marco and Leo Gonzalez.
Oh my God!
He was in the office.
Just amazing. Yeah,
it was great. It was great working with them. But my office faced out on the water. Like, I could see the airport and stuff, and his office was behind me with no windows. It was just like a shut-in office. So I'd always message him. I'd take photos out my window and message him and be like, this view, huh? Just make him a little jealous. Yeah, so I went there. The reason I say I can't remember if it was 6 weeks or 3 months is because I immediately followed that internship up with the gig at TBWA, which was on a fixed contract too. It was like 3 months or something.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a good gig. Taught me a lot of stuff about, bigger clients, especially. So I think like you worked at La Roche, I think, right?
Yes, I worked at one point. Yes.
And they're kind of gone now, but a lot of the clients we had were like mid-sized businesses. And that's all kind of well and good, but when I got to TBWA, it was, Nissan, Sportcheck, there's some Nike stuff coming through, and it's like a whole different ball game, right? Like the briefs are there's way more budget. they do a lot more stuff. And so that was a bit of like a new kind of experience there, learning the ropes, kind of how to deal with bigger clients and bigger budgets. Yeah, that was a good job. I worked with Leo and Marco. I worked with I think there was another Mohawk ad grad there at the time. Sarah Quinto.
Sarah Quinto. Yes.
Yeah, she was there.
She was here. Both Leo and her. I interviewed them for the podcast.
Oh yeah.
I didn't too. Yes.
Yeah.
So nice. I want to ask you this: what is the favorite work that you did during the time at Low Roche and TBWA that you remember?
Oh man, Low Roche. There was one that never went. It kind of never went anywhere. But Adam, I had this like wacky idea for one of the clients was Burnbrae Farms, which is like just eggs. They sell eggs.
Mm-hmm.
We had this wacky idea for like an online game. So they were running a contest. They wanted to do an ad campaign for this contest they were doing. And we pitched a whole bunch of like really wacky, fun ideas. Spent like a week or two just spitballing random stuff. None of it kind of came to fruition, but that was like a fun little like creative exercise, I guess. And then at TBWA, right before I left, I helped out on one of the Super Bowl commercials. No. It was wasn't a Super Bowl commercial. It was one of the Nissan Rogue commercials. So that I think that's on my site still. But we had this campaign that Alan Oak kind of created and birthed, and
I see it here.
The client wanted to do another addition to that campaign, so that was my first kind of like TV experience. The reason I got that too is actually when it was briefed in, Leo had a flu, so he was gone for like 3-4 days. They're like, well, we don't have another art director who's available. Do you want to help out Marco? So I was like, okay, sure. So yeah, that's how I snuck my way onto that. But yeah, that's probably the most memorable, I think, out of the two places is that commercial, just because
I would say I just saw the commercial again. I see it on TV. I remember that commercial.
Yeah.
I see there's a lot of it's the Nissan Rogue is coming to a mountain road, and it looks like the rocks comes alive, and it's like a tribe of rocks that rolling through the hill, trying to get into the car, and and very well done, super efficient for the stability and showing stuff. How is the process for you, John, to get do we search for a 3D production company to do it, or TBWA have an in-house people who will do all the 3D stuff and editing? How's that work?
Yeah, so we had there was a I guess a sister company.
I'm asking this because of the students, to them to learn that they have a broad team. To help them. Yes,
for sure.
Go ahead.
And that's, before I get into that, I think is a big difference between a place like Low Roche and TBWA, or like even bigger agencies. It's a lot of the times you'll work with like third party developers, video editors, whoever. And then as you move into like larger companies, a lot of the time they'll buy up companies that do that stuff and have them in house. So it was a mix of both for TBWA. We had a video editing / production team called Plank. So, the whole pirate theme. So that was Plank, and it was 3 people, 2 guys and 1 like production manager. There's a videographer and a video editor. And I remember they kind of helped plot out the storyboard a bit, but when it came to like the 3D production, the CGI that renders, all that stuff, that was all out of house. So we didn't kind of help find those people. I think the Plank team had kind of a roster of different houses that they thought did good work, and they'd work with before and stuff. So Yeah, a lot of that was kind of just stuff that they like a I guess contact sheet that they had from previous jobs and previous projects and stuff. So
How it
yeah,
is
we
the
didn't really source.
how it is the relationship between your vision to it and what they produce?
Pretty
You know,
pretty pretty close.
very close.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, so actually I left TBWA while this like before it aired. Um, so I didn't see the whole process through, but uh, when we were sitting down, Marco and I sitting down to kind of concept this thing out, um, you know, the whole campaign is based on like the like warning signs on the road kind of coming to life and like being this like big, um, I guess, fictional monster that's like trying to get you off the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started by taking a look at like different road signs, warning signs, and stuff. One of them was the falling boulder signs, and we just started like spitballing stuff. Like, what if the boulders were like little gremlins or something, or like,
Uh-huh.
um, I think it might have spawned from like a Pokemon Golem, who's like a boulder, like a thing living inside of it. It's like, what if it's like Golem, and it's just like these things come rolling down and pop out. Um, and we started like drawing up little illustrations. And as far as like those thumbnails that we drew went, I think it like I don't have them anymore, but I think the end product's pretty close. Like we were basically just talking about little rock creatures, little like rock goblins or like whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, like when I saw the thing on TV, I was like, wow, they did a good job.
That's very
uh,
cool.
yeah, yeah. So that was cool. I think, and even just in my experience, kind of in general, I think uh, a lot of stuff generally is pretty true to the vision that creative has.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there are sometimes like hiccups and logistics kind of get in the way, and you have to change things up, especially if the client wants to change things up too.
I see.
But generally, yeah, I think in my experience at least, things have kind of always been like 80-90% true to the the draft room
Mm-hmm.
thumbnails or whatever. Yeah.
That's interesting. Interesting to hear how important it is that you have that transition. I want to get now to your time at a publicist. Is your next career
Mhm.
move?
So
So the publicist, yeah.
Publicis, yeah, I was fortunate in that I had a really strong team of leaders there. And I so Michael Murray is the one who brought me on to the team. And there were these at the time seniors at Publicis that kind of looked over the Rogers brand. Tyler and Christian. They didn't go to Mohawk, so I don't know if I should mention their
Sure,
last
sure.
names or
No, no,
whatever.
no. Okay.
Um, so it was Tyler Shell. He was the copywriter, and Christian Martinez was the art
Okay.
director.
Of course, it's
Fantastic,
part
like
of your team. You need to
yeah,
say it. Yeah.
best support that I think I've had as a junior. It was funny. It was
How
almost like,
how how come, John?
well, we were we were like, to put it, I guess, one way, for lack of a better term, is we were kind of like babied, which is nice because you're coming out of like these short-term contracts like
Mm-hmm.
internships or like whatever, and you kind of get the industry, you kind of get how things work, but there's a lot that is still unknown, and you still have a lot of questions, you're still learning. And I think they were very open to addressing concerns, questions, whatever. And they were also very patient. I think there were a
Okay.
lot of times where I might have caused Christian to want to keel over. Um, but yeah, I keep saying we. I worked that job with Megan Crass.
Sure.
Um, yeah, another copywriter from my year.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Another one from Mohawk. Yeah.
yeah,
That's it.
she's great, just for the record.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a lot of great support. The team we worked for and under were great. Michael treated us as his little junior babies. So anytime we had like a mild concern with anything, he was there. As busy as he was, he always made time for us. So that was great. And then yeah, those two, Christian and Tyler, like fountains of knowledge. They had this little like closet that it was like their office was like a literal closet that had been repurposed. And we would always just like wander over, walk into their little closet office room and sit with them, ask questions, play music, work, whatever. So that was a good experience, I think, in terms of like riding the learning curve that is starting in the industry. Because that curve is steep, and I'm sure you know this. I'm sure you've heard it from kind of everybody who makes their way in. But
Yes.
the learning curve it's a steep one, and I think not necessarily without, but if you don't have great support, it's hard to kind of grip on and ride that curve up efficiently.
Which are the qualities you suggest the students to have to make that curve more smooth? I know it's not going to be smooth, but
yeah,
this is it.
Yeah. Well, for me, in my experience, it was just having an appetite for knowledge, for learning. I think, I came into the industry doubting my skills a lot. I won't even downplay it. I had a lot of like imposter syndrome, kind of self-doubt. And so I kind of went in with the sole idea in mind of like, I want to be the best art director or designer at wherever I'm at. And that doesn't just happen overnight. You have to watch tutorials on YouTube and doodle stuff and play around with Photoshop and do all this stuff, ask questions to people who know this stuff. And I think that kind of pushed me. I would say the number one thing is have that appetite for getting better, even if you don't feel like you need to, or if you feel like you're in a good spot. I would say there's always room for growth. And if you try to keep pushing for it, you'll just ride that curve up, because you're going to be you're working directly with people who are extremely experienced and knowledgeable. Whether it comes to the finer design or whether it comes to specifics in Photoshop or Sketch, like you are effectively working next to an expert, maybe not physically now, but everyone's just a Slack message away, or I don't even know what most places use. We use Slack. Slack message away, text away, whatever. So yeah, I would say have that appetite for knowledge, ask questions. Yeah. That worked for me.
When it comes to learn, I think it's important to say that this will never stop, isn't it? Like the learning of new stuff and the computer.
Yeah, you stop learning when you're dead.
Yes. There's always a new software or a new revamp or a new thing, and yeah. So I know how hard it is.
Yeah. Actually, on that note, so pretty much my whole career up until like 2 years ago, it was Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, and I touched a bit of video stuff. So it was like, After Effects, Premiere, all that stuff. But primarily Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign. And over the last 2 years, I don't know if it's like this everywhere else, but we had like a huge shift internally where they're like, yeah, we're going to be building 90% of our stuff in Sketch now. And it's like, my heart dropped because I was like, I don't know Sketch. What am I supposed to do? So yeah. It's just to kind of add on to your point. Like,
yeah, we're doing
brand new software.
We are doing the Adobe XD. That is kind of it's kind of a Sketch, but it's similar. But Sketch is much more for the wireframing kind of stuff. It's very good. Yeah. So yeah, I was thinking about introducing that one too. But good to you to know. But yeah, learning new thing, and it's hard. It's hard, but in the end, it pays off. At least you're getting paid for it now.
Yeah.
To do stuff.
Well, that's the nice thing too, right? Like I talked about the learning curve, but I think a lot of it just kind of happens over time too, right? Like
Hmm.
you're not you're not in like three, four different periods at school over the course of a day where one of them might be actually using Photoshop. Like you're literally
Hmm.
using it 8 hours a day every
Yes.
day. And so, there are
Then
things
it's
that
like this. So it's like
yeah,
the.
there are things that I've learned just by messing around. Like, I would hate putting together like a banner ad a certain way. And then something in my brain would just be like, what if I tried it this way? And turns out the thing that I was thinking was like 50 times easier. I was like, well, crap, I should have been doing that the whole time. But yeah, you start kind of picking up on things and, you know, streamlining where you can, which wouldn't happen if you're just using Photoshop for
Hmm.
30 minutes in a class or whatever. So, um, yeah, that helps for sure.
You're now through three different agencies.
Hmm.
What is the difference between the culture on the agencies? You feel like the agency culture is easy to adapt or a little bit hard sometimes?
Uh, for me, it was fairly easy. But I know people who have had a difficult time because that change is so jarring. It kind of just depends where you go and where you come from. But yeah, for me, it wasn't so bad. I would say I only really had one unpleasant experience, which was the job after Publicis. And I think that was it all came down to like a workplace environment kind of thing, where, the kind of support that I had at Publicis wasn't there. The kind of attitude that people came in to work with was different, and like a bunch of other factors, but they all kind of come together and make things really difficult. That being said, I did manage to make some really great connections at that place. Not even just
Hmm.
like in a networking sense, but like I still talk to a bunch of people that I worked with there.
Of course.
Um, yeah, so you know, I think it's different for everybody, but for me, it wasn't that jarring. I think maybe I'm just like an adaptable person. Could just come down to that. But
How
yeah, every
how
place is different.
do you think your soft skills are as important as your knowledge skills on the software and the creativity and strategy, etc.? The way you know how to handle people and.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, especially now, as I'm kind of looking forward, looking to, move up again to like an ACD kind of role.
Hmm.
Um, and what comes with that is like a whole different set of skills, right? And going back to the learning curve a bit, it's like again, I spent like my junior years kind of worrying like I want to be the best art director at the place that I'm at. I want to be like the designer everyone can go to when they want some like killer stuff done or like
Hmm.
need help fixing a layout or whatever. And I think, chasing that, I kind of picked up on I developed this kind of skill that was like over time without even really focusing on it too much. I'm just gonna like ride up slowly. Like my skills in that area are always gonna get better. So now it's like I can kind of put that energy to focus on other things, and that comes down a lot. I've noticed into like workplace politics, how to deal with people, how to delegate work, how to handle situations with people or projects or like whatever that are new and complicated and frustrating. It's like it also comes in like emotions come into play too. Like how do I control my emotions
Hmm.
while trying to deal with a very frustrating person or frustrating problem with the work? Um, I think yeah, for sure, soft skills kind of matter a little bit less. I say it tentatively because they matter when you're starting, but I think at least for me, I would urge juniors and interns to kind of try to focus on their craft a bit more than the soft skills,
Hmm.
maybe. But just try to have them like you have agency experience, right? Where you're kind of learning to work with all these other disciplines and people and see how the process kind of moves and works. I think that set us up, at least in our year, pretty well for those soft skills to where I didn't really have to think about it. But yeah, definitely as you start moving up, you start having to take on more of these like weird things that like I'm an art director and most of my day-to-day problems have nothing to do with a layout, have nothing to do with an idea. They have to do with a brief being weird and me having to talk to the right people to make sure that everything in the brief makes sense to the junior who's working on it.
Okay.
You know, so it's like that kind of stuff. I think, you know, yeah, that importance kind of grows as you grow, and kind of shift from one discipline into wearing many hats all the time.
John, can I come back to one campaign on Publicis that you enjoy working on?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think a lot of the work, because you know we were juniors in a big agency with probably the biggest client one person could ask to be on. Like Rogers is huge. We like a lot of their work was pretty straightforward. We did a lot of like Facebook posts, banner ads, you know, as lame as that sounds. So nothing really stood out aside from I think it's on my website too, actually. It's like the night under the stars or galaxy.
Yes, I see it here.
Yeah, so Rogers did a partnership with Samsung. It was like the Galaxy S3 or something. Like it was a long time ago. And they wanted to kind of, you know, get people thinking about the brand in a bit of a different way. So they set up this like real life event. It was like a camping trip or something. I can't quite remember, but it was like an actual event people would like get a ticket and go to. And they had the whole campaign, the whole idea kind of ironed out and ready to go. And Christian Martinez, the senior art director there, was like, hey, you know, we're putting together a bunch of assets. Do you want to help with the website? So sure, I can make a splash page for the Rogers website. That's great. I'd love to do that. And so that's what I did. That's what's on the site there is just, you know, kind of a support piece for the campaign that had all the information, had info about the phone, about the event, kind of all that stuff. That's definitely the most memorable one.
It looks very good.
Just because everything else was like banner work, YouTube pre-roll videos. Yeah. So, you know,
but
it's
anyway,
just the life.
But anyway, it's part. People think that you receive always that brief that you can go crazy on solving a problem. But I think you realize like a lot of the grind of the day to day is those projects that you do to solve a problem to the client, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not always that brief that will get you the award-winning campaign or something like that.
In my experience, those don't even really ever come to you. You kind of have to make them.
Okay.
Out of something, right?
I know what I mean.
Aside from the Nissan one, because we won a couple awards for that, and I kind of rode the coattails of that. But like, yeah, a lot of stuff is like it's just, you know, a client comes with one ask, and you take that back, and as you're thinking of stuff, you're like, hey, this other thing would work really cool, and then you kind of comes down to like making connections within where you work, but like you talk to the account director or project manager, media people, whoever, about like how to actually, do we have the budget for this? Can you talk to client about this? Can we present it? And it's kind of like those secondary ideas I find that, you know, they don't always go through, usually for budget reasons, timing reasons and stuff. But when they do go through, those are usually kind of the best pieces. Like you never really get a brief and you're like, this is a brief where we can win an award. Like I don't think that's happened.
It's very difficult. Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they create their own brief, do the idea, and then sell to the client, isn't it?
Yeah. Though, you know, I guess kind of coupling.
Well, now,
Uh,
sometimes they even pay for the media. They run the campaign and then they tell the client that they just give the authorization. I heard that before too.
yeah.
Like, anyway, you went to let's see, a freelance part of your career. It's very
Oh,
interesting
yeah,
to get a freelance in Australia and Toronto.
yeah.
How's that feeling of okay? So I will do some freelance now, and I know
hmm
that especially now with the remote, more entrepreneurship side of some of the students, this is a very interesting subject that sometimes comes up. How is that
hmm
process?
Well, for me, it was again, I think my whole career has just been like a sidestep from kind of everyone else that at least I went to school with. But for me, like that freelance period was Megan and I working at Publicis, me kind of doing the trillionth banner ad Facebook post for Rogers on demand, and I was just like, look, I sat her down. I was like, look, I need to leave. Like, I kind of don't want to be here. Um, I guess this isn't kind of
Fair
the work
enough.
that I want to do all
Fair
the
enough.
time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like we just talked about it, like, would that be cool with you? Because I didn't want to, abandon her and have her get let go, or like have to work with someone who sucked, um,
Mm-hmm.
just because of my own decision. So we talked about that, and she was like, "Yeah, it's cool. Kind of, do your thing." Um, and at the time, uh, Wayne had actually gotten me in touch with somebody who used to work in Australia. I can't remember the man's name, Mark something. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but he kind of gave me we hopped on a call, gave me a rundown of how things kind of work in Australia, and I was like, you know what, I'm 20, I think I was 22, 23 at the time. Like, I'm not like, I still live at home with my parents. If I'm gonna jump on a plane and move somewhere for an extended period of time, now is
It's
the
now.
time, because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't have to worry about like storing my stuff or renting my place, blah blah blah. So yeah, I kind of lined up all my ducks, got my ticket ready, all my living accommodations, and then I gave Michael I think it was like a month notice. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm leaving in July, and yeah, and then I
Mm-hmm.
and then I flew to Australia. Um, a lot of it was just freelance work for connections I had made here,
Okay.
and then there was one agency that I did some freelance stuff for. It was a place called Red Crayon in Australia. Um, did a lot of work with like, it wasn't like super interesting, but it was stuff with like, helping them pick the
How,
National Geographic photo for this month's magazine and whatever.
mhm.
Um, so that was
How
cool.
was the experience living abroad and working there and the
Scary,
differences?
scary. I did notice it's kind of changed a bit now here, but at least in the industry that I'm in, which is health and pharma.
Mm-hmm.
But in Australia, I noticed they didn't really care, and maybe it was just because I was a freelancer and I wasn't like in the weeds at the agency, but they didn't seem to care too much about awards and like winning stuff and doing like huge campaigns for award shows and stuff. It was more just like, let's make the client happy, do the
Mm-hmm.
best work that we can, and kind of make interesting stuff because we want to make
Well,
interesting stuff,
well,
not because we want to win an award.
in the end, should be the essence of the work. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's like the biggest thing that I
It was
noticed.
so it was more relaxed,
A
lay
little
down,
bit, yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit, a little bit. Okay.
yeah. Or people were just nice to me because of my accent. Uh,
Okay.
I don't know.
The Canadian. Okay.
Yeah, I made a lot of friends just putting on a thick Canadian accent. You know. No, yeah, it
Oh,
was an interesting experience, a bit nerve wracking. It's weird when you go from a job that has a salary pay to a freelance gig that lasts like 8 weeks or whatever, and like week 6 comes up and you're like, crap, I have 2 weeks left. What am I going to do after this? Are they going to extend this? Do I have to look for something else? Like, you're kind of always
mhm.
on edge in that regard. Though, just in general, at least what I've noticed is freelance pays better as long as you can keep the work steady.
Yes.
Um, yeah. Like, I was a junior, technically, like, you know, taking junior freelance stuff at the time, where I think like average you would make back in like 2015, 16 was like $600 a week as a junior, which is pretty low. And freelancing, I was getting like 900, 1,000 a week, which is pretty significant. That's almost 50%, right? So,
oh yeah, of course.
yeah, you make a lot more money, but you're not steady. So I like steady. So I gave it up. I came back after the year.
But it was,
I still do kind of freelancing.
But it was also for the experience.
It was, yeah, for sure. And even like, I still talk to people that I made friends with there. So, we'll message each other sometimes, see how things are going. So that's nice. Yeah,
So you decided to come back and say, I need something more stable. I went to BMG.
Yeah. So, funny story about that is 2 or 3 weeks before I had my flight home booked. Everything kind of lined up. And I was like, I don't want to get home back to my parents' place and like be worrying about commuting to Toronto 4 or 5 times a week to take job interviews, because it's like a 2.5 hour commute.
Especially after living a year by yourself. And
yeah. So I tried to book e-interviews over the phone, over Skype or whatever.
Sure.
Before I got home, and I had a couple of interviews, and one went okay. They wanted to talk to me again when I got back. So I had a conversation with the creative director, like either the day I came back or 2 days after, and then I went in for an in-person meeting, and they started me on a like 1 week freelance contract, and then after that they were like, all right, we'll bring you on full time. So that one was like lined up pretty much from the day I got back, which was nice. I didn't really have to think about it. Yeah, I've been full time, not there, but just in general full time ever since. Again, I like the stability. So.
Well, there's a time for everything, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I know people who have freelanced for 8, 9 years, and they like it. They're happy with it. I couldn't do it.
How was that BMG work? Tell me.
It was some of the most interesting, but so I was quite literally the only creative person there. There was like an agency of 3 people when I joined, and I was the 4th, and then over my tenure hired 1 more person. So very small place. Did a lot of like work for local businesses. So a lot of the stuff was like Remax, which is on my website. Those were, I think creatively, it was some of the best work that I'd done, but it was also a lot of the most stressful.
How come?
Why? So up until that point, it was like I was the art director, and I would work with designers and do art direction stuff, think of ideas, direct the art, like direct designers on kind of how to polish things up and all that. And here, because we didn't kind of have that, I was the art director, I was the copywriter, I was the video editor, I was the I guess like video production. I would follow the camera guy around when we were shooting a bunch of videos and like tell him to get this shot, that shot, whatever. I was the storyboard artist. I was like sound effects engineer. It was like any role you could think of under the sun, I had to do it. Something like figuring out media. Like it was a lot, and it was a lot that I quite honestly wasn't ready for when it happened. But I think that kind of slingshot me to where I am, because it forced me into this like stressful situation where I had to learn all these things. And I got to leverage what I learned to take me where I am. So yeah,
that's a huge change from
from
to this.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
think there's also, as you said, I think it work in a small space when it comes to group of people working together. There's also always some other skill to acquire there, as you said,
Yeah, for sure.
when you had
Yeah.
to do everything. And I saw some of those this Remax campaign that he did. I love the copy on it. The headlines on the is very good.
The
The Remax. The
I think
Remax that Midtown
the
has 47 running trails and
oh yeah,
10 for school for the Oscars. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that's David Vittori. He's a Midtown real estate guy. Yeah, he was really happy with that. And then we went out and shot all these videos asking people in the area like, "Hey,
Battery,
do you
yes,
know
Battery.
do you know how many dentists are on this block?" And they'd be like, "I have no idea, like two, I don't know." And then, the super would come up. You don't need to know Midtown. David Vittori knows Midtown. That was a good campaign. My favorite though was for this guy Bobby Pasternak, who worked for David, but we did like these like little family documentaries. They're
For
like up and coming.
the family life,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, those were some of my favorite. That was like my favorite thing to have worked on. It was stressful at the time because we had like a 2 month timeline. We'd gone like 3 or 4 weeks without any idea, like no concept what we're doing, how to execute what this guy wants, because he only had it was like $2,000 for execution, like media. Like,
I
how do
see.
we can't hire a videographer and edit this video and get like purchase the assets we need to purchase, like do all this, that we can't do that for 2,000. It's going to cost like 30. So
Hmm.
um we kind of came to this solution as like, okay, well, we can pay a voice actor who sounds like David Attenborough, who like narrates all those nature documentaries.
Hmm.
Pay this one guy to do these voiceovers. We'll write the copy. We'll pay for the stock footage, which this is all stock footage. Um, and then like the drumming one, they're like, we need drum sound effects in there. So I was like, well, I guess I'm learning that skill. And I went in and sound engineered the whole thing, like put in the drum beats as the kid was hitting it.
God.
Yeah, we like it was a patch job if I've ever seen one. But like I think it's some of my favorite work. I think it's the work I'm most proud of, for
The,
sure.
the
Is
web
that
the web
campaign.
the website, by the way, is johnkokoski.com. So if you, I
Yes.
will repeat in the end, but if you guys want to take a look, all the videos are there. So very
Hmm.
important to I think to realize when I have this budget, how much I can extract this money and make the most of it to looks like a much more upscale product, isn't it? In the end.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think we did a really good job. Like every interview I've gone to since then, when I've showed that off, people don't believe it's stock footage or like stock in any way. They're like, "How did you like shoot this for? Like, what was the budget for this?" Because
Hmm.
people who've worked with real estate know that they don't really want to spend their money because it's theirs. They're not using like Remax's money. They're using their own money to put out these ads.
Hmm.
Um, and it's like, how did you get this guy to spend all this money? We're like, well, we didn't. He didn't spend any money really. uh, so yeah, that's a good feeling when stock footage gets put together and you have this stuff that looks like it was produced by like a production house. So yeah,
It's
definitely.
a lot. It's a lot of work. I spent 2 years there, so it's a lot of
Yeah,
work coming
yeah.
to to BMG. So
Hmm.
probably the people at the end, I think pretty much everybody understand each other just to look on in a meeting and knows what is your reaction to an idea or a direction. And
You would think so.
you
I
think so?
did.
Okay.
I touched on it briefly, but my experience there was like not super good. Um, I
Don't
had
need
a
to get into details, but
yeah,
yeah, okay. But
put it
it
to put
happens.
it yeah, to
Short.
put it short, uh, environment and having a boss versus a leader, which there's a distinction. Um,
I see.
yeah,
I see what I mean. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Enough said.
So yeah, so uh, yeah, like the work there was good. I think as it kind of closed out, as the second year closed out, we moved on more to like cannabis design because that was when things like Canada was talking about legalizing marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
So a bunch of cannabis brands were kind of popping out the woodwork.
Oh yeah,
I
the
worked,
explosion of companies and stores and
yeah.
stuff.
So the last year there was like pretty much exclusively cannabis work. A lot of it I can't show because of NDAs and like legal
Of
stuff.
course, of course.
But in the logos section, that Hempster logo, that was one that was kind of cool. But we did a lot of stuff for like high end, like luxury cannabis brands. And like that was I think some of my favorite as well. It's a shame I can't show any of it, but um, up until then, I had kind of been working on a lot of family brands, right? Like Rogers, Remax, Salvation
Mm-hmm.
Army, Circle K, um, and then to go to something that's like the Gucci of marijuana, and like having them say like, yeah, we want our logo designed and our whole brand book created, and like we have nothing, we want you to make it all. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was like really interesting. So you know, workplace drama and whatever else aside, I think the work
It
that I
happens
got
in
to do was great.
everybody's
Yeah,
professional life has
yeah.
some stories to tell. I
Yeah,
guarantee.
yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, at least like the work stayed consistently interesting, consistently, I think creatively captivating. Um,
Good.
so it was good in that sense. And then, I landed kind of where I am now, taking that legal cannabis work and kind of turning it into something different. Um, I started taking interviews at a bunch of shops that were kind of only focused on cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
And then Scott and I came across this ad for an opening at Klic,
But
which
but
is like
but
health
wait,
and pharma.
but wait, you're you're putting this story a little bit further ahead. So you stop
Okay, sure,
that
yeah,
and you
we
start
can
your
back it
partner.
up.
No, you start. So when do you start partnership with Scott
It was
to
like
go there?
it was like right. It was pretty much the day we messaged them about meeting up uh, for the interview. um,
Okay.
he knew that I wasn't happy where I was, and um, he was kind of looking to get out of his situation. He'd been at an agency called Tag for like 4 years or something, and I don't think he had any bad feelings towards the place. It was just like, I've been here a
A
while.
time
I
to
need
change.
something new. Yeah, time to change. So, um, and he was also he got his role switched from AD to copywriter like halfway through that job.
Hmm.
Um, so he's like, well, I'm a copywriter now. We both want something new. Let's. I found this ad for an opening for a team at Klic. So we interviewed together. It was like the day of. We messaged Shayna Ramrick, the talent acquisition lady. Messaged her the day of, saying like, "Hey, we're interested. Here's our resumes. Blah 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 blah. Love to meet whoever." Said it more eloquently and professionally than that, but
Okay.
yeah, there was like no. We'd always kind of teased the idea of working together. For like I've known him for 8 years, so um, we'd always just kind of talked about like, hey, it would be funny if we worked together. And then like this opportunity showed up, and we're like, so yeah, about working
So
together. And then
they're looking for a team, and you guys did the interview as a team.
yep, we did the interview as a team. It was I think controlled chaos is the best way to summarize what the interviews were. Uh,
Oh, why?
well, we have this thing where I think you reach a certain point where you realize when you go to an interview, you're not getting that meeting, and this is more so like intermediate senior level than it is
Mm-hmm.
junior internship level. But there was a point where the creative director isn't meeting with you for an interview to see if you're good enough to do the job. They're meeting with you because they know based on what they see in your resume and website that you can already do the work, that you know what you're doing. The interview at a certain point turns into, can you like hang out with us? Like, are you cool? Do you know how to socialize? Do you know how to like do you know how to shoot the shit? I don't know. Like it's more of a like a vibe check, I guess, in that sense.
By the way, to everybody who's listening, this was pre-pandemic, 2019.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that was a big thing at that time.
yeah. We actually we took an interview during the pandemic, like recently, um, and it's kind of the same deal. Like we went in, we met with it wasn't even the creative director, it was the chief creative officer of this agency. I
Hmm.
can say it. It was an agency called Tank. And we went in there, talked a little bit about our work, and then we spent an hour and a half just like talking about what we loved about the industry and like what we loved about design and good writing and kind of whatever else. And it
Hmm.
wasn't so much a chat about our skills, it was a chat about just like
About
the
empathy,
work. And
about empathy, to see
yeah,
if
yeah,
you
in a
relate
way,
to.
yeah. It's like, yeah, like, we're the funny thing about, and it's hard to kind of realize when you work a part-time job and you go to school, but the funny thing about like a salary job or career is, as sad as it might sound, you're spending more time with the people you work with than you are with your family for the most part. Like 8 hours a
I
day. It
see.
was more so true before the pandemic, because now, like, if I don't have meetings, I'm not busy. I can go sit out with my family, right? But back when we were going to the office, like, you're there 8 hours a day. You're with these
Hmm.
people 8 hours a day, and by the time you commute home and finish cleaning your chores, cooking, whatever, you have like 4 or 5 hours with your family before you go to bed. Um, so that always kind of, I think, stuck with me. It was like, you're spending more time with these people than you are with your
Yeah.
family. You better like them. You better be able to hang out with them and get along, because you're going to be miserable if you can't. And I think, as you kind of move up the ladder, and maybe it's different now. I haven't really interviewed too many interns or juniors. But yeah, it's less about, do you have the capability to do the work? Because of course you do. You wouldn't be here talking to me if you didn't. Um,
Hmm.
like, can we hang with you? Is kind of what it becomes. So
So you almost 3 years at Klick, at a
yeah.
senior art director.
Hmm.
How is the experience work with pharma and healthy products and kind of stuff?
I
How is it?
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's different, and I think there's a like a stigma in the industry that like health agencies are dry and boring and don't really do good creative work. I think that's changing a lot and has been changing for like the last 5 6 years or so. You start seeing like more entries in like uh,
Hmm.
award shows for the health category, and like
Yes.
a lot of really great stuff. Like, our agency put out this like coloring book for colorblind, or to diagnose color blindness in children. Which is like a like really simple but clever way to check if a kid is colorblind, because they're not going to use the right crayons to color a thing in if they're not. But like, we put that out and like won a couple of awards just recently. Actually, I saw a post on LinkedIn about it. And like, you see work like that coming out of
Very nice.
a bunch of different health and pharma agencies. And I think, creatively, uh, the opportunities are there, and as numerous as they are in the rest of the industry. But the menial work is also more plentiful. Like, you are doing a lot of banner ads um, and social posts that they're dry, but they have to be by design, because you're dealing with the FDA and drugs that
God.
you know have side effects that might kill people, and stuff like that. So there are, like, you have to follow kind of regulation in that way. So it brings its
Hmm.
own challenges. Um, but Scott and I have had the pleasure of doing a lot of like really fantastic creative work. And I think there's another level to it, at least for me. I don't want to speak too much for him, even though I think he feels the same. But we kind of came in thinking, like, if we can spend our 8 hours a day doing work that is in some way touching someone's life in a positive or beneficial way, um,
Hmm.
that's like all the better. I think it kind of gives, at least it gives me a lot of drive to kind of keep doing what I'm doing. So our main client is a drug that is used to treat major depressive disorder. So a lot of the work we do is, awareness work, or it's work for kind of just talking about depression and stuff like that. And, even if it's something as simple as like a banner ad, you put that out and like somebody seeing that is, being positively influenced to make a better decision for themselves. And I think, we find at least I do. I find a lot of kind of, I don't know, feel goody
I feel,
in that regard.
I
So
completely understand that,
yeah.
and I also think that the health clients are not as much explore on the ideas by history on as the regular mainstream products. So there's a much more green field to you to explore when it comes to
Hmm.
creative approach that I think is
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah,
So
and it's weird because like you get in these situations where like one of the coolest things I think we did was at least recently was so the client came to us, and usually you're bogged down with a bunch of stuff, at least from like a layout perspective, where you have to have safety information take up, it's like 33% of the page, and like all this stuff, like all these rules. But they came to us, and they're like, yeah, we're doing a presentation at this conference. This is early 2020, before things locked down. We're doing a presentation at this medical conference. We're going to have one of our reps go and talk about depression and talk about the patient ambassador that we have. And we just want a video for them to play on stage to support his speech. But because it wasn't consumer facing, it was a guy speaking at a conference with doctors. And because it wasn't published anywhere, we didn't have to follow those regulations. So we kind of
I
took
see.
it like complete 180 turn, and it was like it was so we have this whole campaign that follows the patient ambassadors, people that have depression, and talk about their life and kind of how things are with Trintellix, and how they're dealing with their depression. They do like tips and like all this stuff. It's pretty cool kind of peek into the window of these people's lives. And so we took the main ambassador, Jesus, and really took his like life story, summarized it, and then had it illustrated and like watercolor painted. It was like animated like really beautifully. I wish I could
Wow.
show you, but I cannot.
Of course.
um, but yeah, we got to do this really cool thing, and it wasn't bogged down by safety information or black box warnings or anything else, because it wasn't
Hmm.
necessary. It wasn't like facing an HCP or a consumer in the same way that anything else was. So like those opportunities do show up. But yeah, it's mostly, doing work that's benefiting people's lives, and kind of throwing an interesting design and art direction and copy where you can. I think that's like the challenge that it's become. And it's a challenge that I kind of like, because you're bogged down by so much restriction. And it's like when you get like a small win, you celebrate it a lot more. But I kind of like thinking in a box. I feel it's a little overwhelming when you have like an open brief, and they're like, do whatever, we trust you and your expertise. And it's like, okay, that's great, but you're giving me the whole world here. I need you to rein it in. And pharma does that to an extent that's maybe a bit too much, but I think it keeps it interesting because you're always trying to push those boundaries, right? Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I would say that's like the big kind of difference between the two. A lot more restrictions, but I think, as I'm sure uh, restrictions kind of come about really interesting work a lot of the time.
Oh,
So
yes. I want sometimes the restrictions are good
hmm
to you to get to new challenges and try something different. I would I would go to your logos here. I want to talk about one
sure.
logo, the Sugar Ray Rayford.
Yeah,
So
I
um,
thought that might catch your eye.
oh yes, it did catch my eye.
Yeah,
Amazing lettering that he did here. How was
thank
that
you.
process?
some of the most anxiety inducing I've ever had in my life. So I'll explain why.
Sure.
I'm just straight up, flat out, not great at hand lettering. Typography isn't my strong suit, never really was. If you remember any of my work from your typography classes, I don't think any of it stood out. So, this was really interesting to me. And this actually kind of taught me, I did this like 2017, 2018. This logo specifically actually taught me quite a lot about what it means to be an art director. And,
How come?
So as I mentioned, I'm not great with like hand lettering, typography, all that kind of stuff. And this kind of became an exercise of like the client wants it this way. So, you got to do it. I had drafted up, it wasn't my first rodeo in terms of logo creation. So I'd like drafted up like 50 or 60 different logos, just like sketched thumbnails and whatever, to kind of get a feel for what this guy Sugar Ray was looking for. And a lot of it was pretty straightforward, like word marks, no real symbols or anything. Actually, if you scroll down on that page, you'll see the poster that I made. So that poster was actually made before the logo was created.
Okay.
And so we made this. This was his first ask to make him a poster for some event he was performing at. And he's like, yeah, I don't have branding. I have this like illustrated image of myself. Can you make a poster with this and like, make it work? So we're like, okay, cool. Yeah, we can do that. Came back with this. He liked it. And then like a month later, he was like, so that poster got me thinking, I should probably have a logo and some branding or something. So do you want to do that? We're like, okay, yeah, sure. Going back to the logo and why it taught me a lot about art direction. It kind of was the first time where I faced reality in that you're not always going to be able to do what the client is asking or what someone is asking of you, either because you don't have the experience or your skill set isn't there yet. And with this, it was a bit of a like push into the deep end. So I guess like I don't really know how to elaborate on that too much, but I guess to summarize in like a simpler way, the entire word mark isn't something I like hand lettered myself. I realized that I couldn't do the full word mark myself, so I started looking through like a font catalog, trying to find one that just like had a good vibe to it, that was kind of like following what we were after. And I came across this one font. I can't remember the name, but it's the one that we ended up using, which was kind of like the base of this whole thing. So, I typed out Sugar Ray Rayford and then started looking at, what letters work, what ones don't, what do I need to change? And so if you like take a real close look, you'll see all the A's look identical. The two R's look identical. And that's because they were quite literally typed out as a font. They are identical. But then I pulled out the kind of problem letters, like the ones that weren't working. The Y, the G, the S, R, Y, and the D. They were just kind of like, they weren't connected to the rest of the type. They weren't like kind of working together. And I was like, okay, well.
And you begin to customize the letters.
Constructing it from the base work we had, which was the other, like I didn't have to worry about the other stuff and making that look good. It was already there. And we had this idea, like going back to the poster, his illustration he provided, smoking a cigar. He's like a bluesy rock kind of R&B type dude.
Sure.
So like, okay, he likes cigars. And maybe we can do something that feels like really mellow, put a cigar in there somewhere, and like maybe the type is like smoke coming off the cigar, which you can kind of see with the Y there.
Yeah.
So yeah, taking like the U was actually, if you look at the G in Sugar Ray, that was also an A at one point. And I was like, the G sucks. So I'm going to take the A and I'm going to mold it into a G. So it was like, piecemealing like a thing together, kind of like taking a font that worked, making this icon that he liked, and then constructing the type myself in a way that like I can't handwrite to save my life. So I didn't have to worry about that. It was just like I can edit the letters I need to edit, and I had a tablet, so it was like I kind of picked out a couple letters that would work for grounding it, which was the S and the Y in Rayford. You can see like the kind of like swish going on between them to kind of like hamburger it all in. So I was like, okay, I can do something with those two letters, and so I drew this like clean sweep, I guess, and did like a little curl, made the S, used the pen tool to kind of blow that out, and then I typed in two A's, and I took the one A, turned it into a G, and then drew like a little infinity symbol, and did a bunch of like post work with the pen tool to kind of get that looking okay. And then same deal with the Y, the D.
I would say it looks super cool.
Thank you.
It was a very nice job. The client was happy. I think
he loved it. It went through a couple different iterations, just like editing some stuff.
Yeah, no, of course. There's always a process of approval.
It was like the first time. It's like up until that point, my idea of being an art director was you have to be the best in so many fields so that you can execute stuff like this when it comes up. And I got to this project as like, well, I am not good at typography. So how can I mix what I am good at, which is, illustrating stuff and doing like little drawings, with typography that I'm not good at? And it's just kind of, it taught me to do, I guess, like constructing stuff from a bunch of different parts, if that makes sense.
Which worked perfectly in the end.
Yeah. Which sometimes you just have to do. Like you don't always have the skill set you need to pull something together. And usually, I would say in most agencies, you have a team or a dedicated group who can help you do that, but I didn't in this case. And so it became a bit of like a lesson for me. Like I'm not always going to be able to do everything from scratch myself. And one phrase I learned was learn how to steal like an artist, which I had to do here. We bought the font and all that stuff, but like editing it in a way that worked and that felt custom, without having to worry about doing it all perfectly.
That's a great process here. I love this process because I think students will realize like they have to be adaptable to the skills and what they have in their hands. So very good.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna get through the final part now, and I will have two questions for you, John. First one is, I want you to tell me your best memories from the college, from the program.
Best memories from the college. There are so many. Okay, there are two that come to my mind immediately. One, the biggest one, and I feel bad saying this because I don't think the people listening get the experience, but hanging out in the agency all day, working on stuff, collaborating, tossing ideas back and forth, walking up, probably bothering Leo more than he wanted, asking him to help me with layouts and stuff. Great, fantastic experience. It really kind of got me into the mode of, an open work environment where you can just go talk to whoever about whatever, which worked out really well when it came to the industry. And the second thing was never directly, but behind Scott, I would help him mess with Jeff and make Jeff's life a nightmare. That was a good one. I was never directly involved, but I certainly did not stop him from doing anything.
There's still a poster on Jeff's office there.
Oh, is it the one with the scribbled out eyes? The demon horns?
There's one too, but there's one saying, "This is where your dreams or ideas comes to die." Scott Rogerson.
Yeah, he signed it too.
Yeah,
of course.
Is it still there on the wall? Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
But good. And my last question, John, for you is, students in second, first, third year, your 2 cents on what they should do to break into the industry. mistakes to avoid, that kind of stuff. Creative still.
Yeah. That's that's a I think an easier question to answer now that I'm in the industry, but I got this answer a lot when I was a student and it never really made sense, so hopefully I can elaborate in a way that does, but
Sure.
just, reach out to people. A lot of people are happy to help and can understand the position that you're in trying to get a foot in the door. And I think a lot of people understanding that position and having been there before are extremely willing to help. And you might not get a whole lot of responses, but just keep doing it, and someone will respond. I'm more than happy to help, field questions, make connections between other disciplines and whatever. But that's the biggest thing, and I think it didn't really make sense to me as a student, because I was like, well, I don't know, like, how do I get somebody's email? How do I reach out to these people? And I think, like, quite honestly, being in the industry, a lot of people are connected to LinkedIn, I think more so now than they were when I was graduating. So LinkedIn is probably the most valuable resource. You can literally just type in like Toronto art director and you'll get a list of like 30,000 names from a number of different agencies, or copywriter or account director, like whatever. But yeah, I would say reach out to people. I'm obviously one of those people. I have helped a lot of people like get in connection with others, even if it's not necessarily art. Like a friend of mine, for example, wants to get into cybersecurity. We have a cybersecurity team at our agency, so I connected him with the VP of cybersecurity. But yeah, I'm glad to help out. Yeah, I just say reach out, talk to people, don't be shy, and yeah, people will lend a hand. They're more than willing, trust me.
How about mistakes to avoid in a book?
Mistakes to avoid.
That you see usually you see in
Hmm.
this and say, people need to stop doing this or that. Yeah.
That's a bit harder because I think as you grow, you're always going to look back and notice mistakes in your work.
Of course,
Um,
of course.
and like even I still, like, I'll look back at stuff I did 2 years ago or a year ago in a professional setting and be like, how did that even get through a presentation, let alone approved and in market? But I would say just, I think having an attention to detail, and I think that applies more to art and design than it does to copy, but
Hmm.
have a very strong eye for detail, and I guess try to be a bit of a perfectionist if you aren't already, um, because that's certainly helped me. You know, I feel like if you have an attention to detail, it's easier to step back and look at the bigger picture to kind of fix larger problems. Where a lot of the time it's the small stuff that slips through. So focus on the small stuff and then take a step back.
Hmm. John, thank you so much for today. I will get through your best way to students is to contact you is LinkedIn for sure.
LinkedIn, yep.
So
Every link I have is on my website, which is linked on LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn. You can find my site. Then
and you
there's an
can
about page with my email, Instagram, like whatever.
and everything.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
No, it's been a pleasure. I find it's fascinating how every single time I talk with a student, there's another perspective,
yeah.
and I found it great that you, especially the case of the logo, the process of the logo was my favorite part of this conversation.
Hmm.
I think it was very insightful. We're going to be talking soon. Thank you so much, everybody. John Kokoski, and thank you so much, John.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good luck,
Until,
everyone.
all right, until next time, Rapscast, Tale from MohawkAd. Thank you.